What's going on, Golden Gamers? You come to the GG Melee YouTube channel for a lot of reasons. Maybe it's sick gameplay, fun challenges, or even expert analysis. But we're about to give you another cool reason to stick around, life-changing advice. We asked our YouTube community and we asked people on Twitter what life situations you were needing help with. And I'm going to do my best to help you out. We're going to see if we can make some progress together. Let's go ahead and get into it. Jack SSBM asks, what's the difference between PPMD and Dr. PP as a person and player? Thinking face. So this question, I think most people are just like, oh, it's the same. Or some people still call me Dr. PP, which is crazy. Haven't gone by that in quite a minute. But Dr. PP was much younger, much more naive, very much cared about being a perfectionist. And that certainly translated to in the game, cared very much about not seeming incorrect and that sort of thing. Also, at one point, he had that weird beard thing. You guys remember that? I don't know what's going on with that guy. Anyway, PPMD, this person is very different. I think Dr. PP was more focused on like flowcharting in Melee and not very interested in playing the player, where I feel like as PPMD is much more of the flip of that, much more interested in playing the player and less interested in flowcharting. As a person, I feel like PPMD has gone through quite a few changes, which is why perhaps another tag change will be necessary at some point, but that is not today. Today we're talking about PPMD as someone who became very introspective, did not want to just bash his head against the wall until something worked, realized that was no longer going to be effective, and began to look inward, began to look at the connection of things, began to look at more possibilities, who has developed many more tools, has learned from many different sources, and is able to be constantly progressing. And this is especially true in ways outside of the game, but as PPMD would say, the game and the person are intimately linked, especially at the high level. So one way you could say it is working at the game from another angle, which is sort of what I view the last several years to be. That's my view on it. I don't think most people would have that view, but that is my perspective of it. And certainly there is more to be said, but we can save some of that for the future. So great question, and hopefully this is some interesting insight. Let's go on to our next one. Logans BM asks, is desire to reduce desire a desire to reduce? Now, this feels like one of those things where if you say the word too much, it loses all meaning, which I think maybe is partly that maybe there's a subtle thing about that in there, but you would assume so, right? If you are wanting to want less, you are still wanting, right? And I mean, this is a really deep question because you're now thinking about, you know, what is wanting? Do you want to be in a state of not wanting, because only then could you be happy? And there's a lot of branching paths that you could go from here. But I guess to answer the question, you know, I suppose it probably is a desire. But you know, if the goal that if the ideal you have for yourself or for people is to be beyond desire, then I suppose that's probably the last one to go, right? The desire to desire. So I mean, having that as a goal, if nothing else, will probably get you closer to that or help you learn a lot of other things. It is kind of counterproductive, but sometimes things are just kind of paradoxical. For example, the fear, and this is going to sound a little weird, but if you have fear of losing in Melee, most people combat that by saying, okay, well, you know, losing just doesn't matter. Like, you just don't think about it and you block it out and you know, or whatever, right? But that doesn't really work. And so, you know, what I find to be helpful for people when they're afraid of losing is to accept loss, right? And it's kind of paradoxical, because if you then are okay with this thing that you're not wanting, right, there's our word, if you're okay with this thing you're not wanting, then suddenly it's much less likely to happen. You become more confident, and then even if you do lose, it becomes less likely to happen in the future because you're okay with it. In a similar way, if you're okay with desire and you're okay with this thing being the way it is, it's probably not going to mess with your mind as much, and then you might get that much closer to removing that sort of force messing with you. I don't really know if this is where you wanted me to take this question. I kind of just wanted to try and make it a little helpful in the ways that make sense to me. Hopefully it's helpful. Maybe it was just a really heady thing, but if it helps someone, I'm here for it. I desire to move on to the next question. Penguin asks, hey PP, I was just wondering, you went through a lot of mental struggle both during and after your time as a top professional player, so I think you might have some insight into this. Do you have any advice to people looking to overcome imposter syndrome or fear of failure? That's actually funny. We kind of just touched on that in the last question. I have a desire to see the future. If you got to where you got through the effort that you made and through the skills that you built, there's no reason why you wouldn't continue doing this or continue to improve, so you'd be only more valuable, so you're even more likely to be where you are or go even farther. That's something I can encourage anyone more simply, right? To feel happy with what they've done, happy with who they are, happy with everything that they've done for themselves. And I think that's something great to encourage. Because there are so many people that I think do wonderful things and, you know, maybe they don't accept compliments or whatever, but I think it's wonderful to, you know, celebrate yourself, and you don't have to do this outwardly, but doing this inwardly, I think it's still just a beautiful thing. And, you know, if you're willing to say, even just, you know, I was on time for work today, or I did the work that I was supposed to do, you know, whatever, and you feel good about that, then you are opening yourself up to do more of that in bigger ways. And so I think this is not something that always happens suddenly. It's not always like a flash and then suddenly you're a totally changed person. Sometimes it can be gradual, and you can be opening yourself up to be more comfortable with success and, you know, your full potential and all that wonderful stuff. I just want you to know that whatever you're doing, if you are thinking about, you know, these things, you know, you've already, I'm sure, already succeeded. So congrats on that, and I hope you keep pushing. Next question. Ezekiel Pinedo asks, hello PPMD. Things with my partner are going great. The only problem is she doesn't really appreciate how much I reference Kingdom Hearts 2, specifically the Timeless River and the song Sanctuary by Utada Hikaru. Any advice? Should I compromise and find a middle ground, or should I stand firm and help her understand that my friends are my power? Thank you in advance. Wow, thank you, Zeke. Absolutely phenomenal question. I gotta say, I think the Timeless River, I mean, it's called that because the reference is truly timeless. I think if you don't understand how important the Timeless River is and how much the historical world of Kingdom Hearts 2 matters, I think this is just a knowledge gap. Really, just maybe there was a ghost that absorbed your partner's memories or something. Because if you've experienced the world, there's no reason why you wouldn't love the Timeless River. And in fact, you would want to hear about it as much as possible, right? Because the more you're thinking about the Timeless River, the less you're thinking about the desire to reduce desire, or Among Us, or I think gentle but firm, much like a pillow, specifically Zane's, would be very helpful in your discussion with this person. Of course, you love them very much. You want to remind them of that, preferably as many times as you can throughout, and that this is not a threat, but this is very important to you, and you really can't compromise. You can say you will, but you know you can't, and you can make that clear. But yes, I do think the Timeless River is great. I think it is a part of who we all are, and hopefully your partner will understand that sooner than later. Best of luck in your journey. Next question. Cinnaminian TGM. Do you feel like there is a moral obligation to take part in society or groups and converse or better the collective whole, or do you think it is fine to focus the twos here instead of the letter 2, given the nature of this question, is jarring and crazy, but I'm here for it. Better the collective whole, or do you think it is fine to focus on oneself and improve to your own principles even with the dangers of reclusiveness? Okay, so let me try and simplify this question, because that is how you answer questions a little more effectively. Do I feel like I have to take part in society and better society, or is it fine to focus on myself and improve myself, even though there are dangers of being alone? That's an interesting question, because I think this question actually, I mean, depending on how deep you wanted to go, you could be like, well, what's an individual's purpose or best life path or whatever, right? But this is a very personal question, and it's hard to give a general answer for. That being said, I'm gonna try. I recommend, if you are generally someone that maybe is hurting at a certain time, it is generally going to be better to reach out. Maybe not all the time, but that connection really goes a long way. Even when I felt really, really depressed and I really didn't want to talk to whoever or whatever, I felt like I was better afterward. If there are times where you just got to do things on your own, and I find myself to be someone who probably is more in the camp of focusing more on my own stuff, but even me, I'll feel a need to connect with people, a need to see what's going on or share what I'm working on or whatever. And so there is that need for me as well. And so I think following your feeling is going to be really important, knowing what works best for you, and also maybe some experimenting. You feel like now is a time you want to grow and spread your wings and try something different. Or maybe you think now is a time to, rethink things and go about it a different way. And I think all of that's fine, but I think the most important thing is listening to yourself. And of course, if you're going to be talking to someone, listening to whatever they're going to say. We could all certainly use a little more of that in the world. Next question. Burger King. What is your favorite fast food restaurant? There is a correct answer. Is it Taco Bell? I haven't had fast food in a while. I'm gonna be honest, Burger King, I've only had you a couple times, and it did not leave the strongest impression. I was a huge McDonald's guy actually in my Dr. Pee-Pee phase. Harkening back to our earlier question, I was running on chicken nuggets and Coke until that crashed somehow. And then I became a Taco Bell person. I was very into Taco Bell. I was getting Dorito tacos or just regular tacos, and it was a great time. Until I realized that I couldn't live that way anymore. My body was like, no, you will die if you continue doing this. And so I stopped. But I just want you to know that Taco Bell, and to a smaller extent McDonald's, were the kings for me. Please forgive me, Burger King. Nothing personal. Next question. Can't lift pee-pee. There is imminent danger afoot. The wasps are coming. Any advice? I would assume based on your message it's too late. And also you're not able to lift, so if maybe the wasps were coming and then they affected your arms and that's why you can't lift. Maybe it's like one of those things where you were stung by a lot of wasps and now you sense them in the air, like how cows lay down or whatever when the rain's coming. That makes sense to me. Anyway, if the wasps are coming, what do? Wasps have enemies. I don't know what they are. Maybe larger wasps, or like, oh wait, don't lots of bees kill wasps if they go inside the nest? But that's not going to work. You'd have to no. Well, you could, because it just takes a lot of bees to overheat the wasp. So, okay, solution, get more bees. I think if we have a ratio of 10 bees to 1 wasp, we're probably fine. So I think the solution is bees. That's my final answer. Next question. Thomas Carasso dit Carson. I don't really know if that's like a language that benefits from me saying it like that, but I hope so. Hey PP, hope you're doing great. Thank you. I hope you're doing great too. Your video on meditation was really enlightening. Do you have any book recommendation to go further? I'm a skeptic and wouldn't know how to find proper documentation on the topic. I like to keep it evidence-based, and when looking for meditation stuff, I tend to find more New Age or pseudoscience stuff rather than good vulgarization books. Thank you for everything. You're an inspiration for a lot of us. Best regards. I think there's a lot of stuff out there science-wise about meditation, but it's been so long since I've looked into a lot of it, because for me, once you get past being convinced by science or you just try it and you like it, you're just convinced by your own experience. So for me, it's about my experience at this point. And my experience of it is that it's great. And that's been the case for a lot of other people. But right, that doesn't matter, for you, right, if you're not convinced. There's a book that I often recommend people when they're asking and they're curious. I don't think this is particularly science-based, but it does kind of just like logically explain some things pretty simply and give you some things to try. It's called Mindfulness in Plain English, and that might be something to consider. Generally, of course, we want these things to be more accessible so that more people can try it out and see what it's like. But yeah, there's going to be different things that appeal to different people. I don't know of other science-based ones. I think the way I found about meditation was like, I either talked to some people or I read some stuff like a while ago, or I just saw some stuff online and wanted to try it out. And that's how I got into it. I don't think there were as many books, or like there were already meditative practices as parts of other things that weren't like, there weren't books specifically about it. So I've kind of pulled from a lot of different sources and a lot of different areas when I do it. Gratitude, we know gratitude has various positive effects on the brain, and it'll do all sorts of things. I mean, that's very easy to look up about how gratitude impacts people. And you don't have to spend a lot of time even, daily to think a little differently about this. Personally, what I do is I'll think of 3 things at the beginning of my day and at the end of my day I'm grateful for, and why I'm grateful for them. Mindfulness, as another example, can be you're just walking and you're noticing the sensation of your foot hitting the ground, or the way the air feels on your skin. You're just noticing. And I think the act of noticing and training your concentration is a key feature of meditation. So, when you're walking, you can think of it almost as a moving meditation. And so if you want to try things in some different ways, those are some things to kind of play with. Maybe the mindfulness book will work out for you, but maybe there are just some practices you can try. So hopefully something in there is useful. I do really like meditation a lot, and I hope that something about that could be useful. But those are all the questions that I've got in front of me today. So it looks like this episode is over. Thank you everyone that did ask questions, and I hope you guys found this valuable. It was very fun to do, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Peace.